With our main pagination class completed, we can now create a set of classes that will basically handle the formatting of our pagination. And we're going to call them views. So it's going to be pagination view, which is going to be the abstract class, and then any subclasses which will represent specific HTML formats. The only one that we're going to be doing within this course is going to be for the select pagination, where we have left right button, we have label for page, whatever number it is, of how many pages, and then this standard select HTML tag, where you can select basically which page you want to navigate to. But having this pagination, main abstract pagination view class, which we'll create in just a second, will allow you to later on add any other HTML formats of the pagination, should you wish to have a different one than the one we're going to create within this course. Okay, let's start with a new class, and it's going to be pagination view. The namespace is app pagination, same as previously. It's going to be an abstract class, so because we don't want to be able to instantiate this class on its own. It's going to be only used with any subclasses as a parent class, which contains a constructor, get methods, and one magic underscore call method, which is basically going to delegate calls to selected number of methods on the pagination instance. So let's start with the constructor. Constructor will take pagination class instance. So pagination, I'm going to update the doc block and initialize fields. So we have this pagination property now, which is basically what we're passing through as an argument. Okay, so that's our constructor. Next, we're going to have a public function get. And this method, if I just create a few new lines so you can see a little bit better, this method will simply check if this pagination has only one page, then we will return just an empty string. You can set it to null, but I'm going to use empty string because I want this method to always return string. If you were using PHP 7, then you could declare the return type string, and obviously at this point, if we were to return null here, that wouldn't work. That's why I'm using basically an empty string here. Okay, otherwise we're going to return this HTML, which is going to be an abstract method here within this abstract pagination view class. So abstract public function HTML. This is what every subclass should implement. Basically, it's one of the requirements when you're extending this class, this abstract class. You have to have this HTML method implementation. Okay, I'm going to add some doc blocks to this get method. It returns string get pagination HTML, and then for this HTML method, I'm going to say that it returns string. And again, the same thing, get pagination HTML. The other method simply first checks whether there is only one page, and at that point, obviously, it does return only an empty string rather than pagination. So pagination won't be visible if there's only one page. Unless, obviously, you want to display pagination every time, regardless of whether there's more than one, just one page or more than one page, then obviously you can ignore this statement here. Okay, and then I'm going to use this magic call method, so override methods call, and this one takes name and arguments. Arguments are of the array type. So what I'm going to do here is basically, I only want to, and I'm going to make it strictly public, or I only want to allow dynamic method calls to a number of methods on the pagination class. So because we are going to use this dynamic call here to delegate some calls to the pagination instance. So I'm going to first check if exclamation mark in array, and then the name of the method that we just called. And if it's not in the array where we have limit, I want to allow access to limit and offset. And if the method we are trying to call does not exist within the given class, and it's also not limit and offset, then we want to throw the exception. So throw new exception saying method and then method name in between the curly brackets was not found. And let's import this exception class here. So right at the top, you have this use statement with the exception. Otherwise, if it's limit or offset, then we simply return, and we're gonna use call user func array on this pagination instance method with this name, and then we pass arguments as a second argument to this call user func array. This will trigger either limit or offset method on the pagination class instance. Okay, let's now add doc blocks. Name is going to be a string. Arguments are array. Return mixed, because it may return anything there. We may, with the time, add some other methods if you decide that you want to allow access directly through this view, through the given view class to any other methods on the pagination class. Obviously, you can add them to this array. But I think these are the only two that we're going to need. Then let's just add some doc block. Delegate calls to selected methods not declared within the view to the pagination class instance. And I'm just going to put it like this. I think that's going to work better. Okay, so that's our main abstract view class, and it's now ready. Let's now save it and close it. And let's now create the subclass for this pagination view, which is going to be called select pagination view. And this class will extend this pagination view class. And as you can see, it's automatically highlighted because we need to implement one of the methods, the abstract method HTML, which has been declared within this pagination view. So now from within this pagination, this HTML class, we are going to start with out variable, and we're going to start with the form, then class, SSD-pagination, which is later on used with this SSD select plugin. If we go to assets, JS source, you'll see we using this SSD pagination class, and then obviously the select HTML tag, which is this drop down menu, and we bind the instance of this SSD select plugin to it. So we've got this form, then out, we're going to concatenate it with this previous HTML method. We don't have this method yet, so let's quickly add the method stub first. Then we concatenate it with out this page label. Again, we don't have this method. Let's add the method stub. We'll work with these methods later on. Out this current HTML. Again, let's add the stub, and out this off label. And again, let's add it. After off label, we have out this next HTML, and let's add method stub, and the last thing will be closing form tag, and then we return this whole string. So the previous method will give us the previous button. Page label will simply be a page label, which is page. Then we're gonna have select menu, so it's going to be this drop down menu. Then which is this current HTML. Then we're going to have off label, which is going to give us the number of pages, and then next button. Everything wrapped within this form. Okay, so let's start with this previous HTML. We are going to check first if pagination is first page, and as you can see, it's automatically highlighted in red. And this is because if we go back to the pagination view, I've made it private, so we need to make it protected in order for any subclass to be able to access this property. Now should be better. Yep, there we go. So if pagination is first page, then return this inactive previous HTML. And this is the method that will simply return inactive previous button. So I'm just going to copy the name and add it here. So private function inactive previous HTML. We'll work with this method in just a moment. Okay, otherwise we're going to start with the format. equals, and we're going to start with the uncle tag, and then href, and here we're going to start with the percentage symbol and s in between double quotes. Then we're going to have class button, and then we close it, concatenate it with, now we could put basically the arrows back or anything like it's straight in, but because we're going to be using this in several places, what I'm going to do is add the property called this, it's going to be called pref underscore text, and then concatenate it with the closing uncle tag. So let's add this pref text, obviously concatenating here as well, so full stop. Let's scroll up to the top and let's add this property, private pref text, and I'm going, because I'm using font awesome here, I'm going to use I with the class fa hyphen angle left. You can use the text, whatever you want, and then obviously closing italic tag. And I'm going to duplicate this one because I'm going to have the same name, the same one for the next text, only this time rather than angle left, it's going to be angle right. And let's just add some doc blocks here quickly. It's a string, and this one is also a string. Okay, if we scroll down, so we have this pref text, and what I'm going to do next is return using the printf function. First the format as the first argument, and then what I want to replace this percentage s with. So that's going to be this pagination previous URL, which is going to give us the URL to the previous page. So that's the previous HTML. It's going to be uncle tag, which is going to be with basically formatted as a button using this button class. I'm using Zerp Foundation here. Obviously, if you use any other classes to format your styling, obviously make sure that you obviously format it here, add these classes to this HTML string here. Okay, so that's our previous HTML. Let's just quickly add some doc block. It returns a string. Inactive previous HTML returns void at the moment, that's why it's automatically put it here, but it's going to be a string as well, so it's definitely returning string. Now get previous button. Okay, so now for the inactive previous HTML, what we're going to have is simply return. It's going to be spun this time if obviously we don't have a button, we don't want the previous button to be enabled, then we're going to have spun rather than uncle tag with the class button, and then disabled, so it's like graded out more. And then again, this pref text, and then closing span tag in this case. Let's just add some doc block, string, and then get previous button when on first page. When on the first page, probably. Okay, so we've got previous HTML. The next method we need to work with is page label. This is going to be pretty simple. It's just a return span with a class label, and then page, close span. And let's just add some doc blocks here, return string, get page label. Then for the current current HTML, actually let's move this off label right after, and let's do this one first, which is going to be returning span with a class label as well. And in between, we're going to have off, and then how many records. So this pagination number of pages, and let's close it with the closing span tag. So this is page, then we're going to have this select drop down, which is going to have selected current page, and then of so many pages. So page, say 1 of 20 or something like that. Okay, let's add the doc block to this of label as well. It returns string, obviously, get of, and then question mark to indicate obviously number of pages, label. Then for the current HTML, we're going to concatenate a few lines here. So out, it's going to be select, then out will have this options method in just a moment, and then out, concatenate with the closing, select, and then return out. So basically we're going to have select element with all these options. Each option will represent the page and its value will be the page URL. So let's quickly create this options method. Private function options, and then we have options. There we go. We start with options equals array, and then we're gonna go for each, and we're gonna use a range function here. We start with the first page, and then this pagination number of pages, which is going to give us the total number of pages. So we start with 1 till the last page, and it's gonna be S page. And then we go for options. We add this option. We pass page through as an argument, method which we don't have yet, and then we simply return. We implode this array using just an empty string, basically, so there won't be any space. All these options will be imploded together. Okay, let's create this option method now. So private function option, and it takes the page as an argument, and from here we're going to start with option. Again, we're going to be concatenating the string. We start with option tag, then value, double quote, single quote, semicolon. Let's scroll up. Option, we concatenate it with this. It's going to be option value method. We pass the page through as an argument. Then we concatenate it with closing double quote, single quote, semicolon, option, and then we go into check if it selects it. So this selected method as well, page through as an argument, then option, concatenating, we close this opening option tag, then option, concatenating with the page, which is going to be the page number, option, and concatenating with the closing option tag, and then return this option. Okay, so what happens here? We basically create an option for our select tag. So option, we start with the value. Value will be the URL of the given page. Then we close this attribute here. Then we basically are going to have selected attribute if we are on the current page with this currently obviously iterated page is the current page. That's going to return selected, and then obviously page goes in between the opening and closing option tags to indicate what page it is. So what I'm going to do is actually, before we go any further, let's just add some doc blocks here. Current HTML, get current HTML string, and let's go for the options. Options, what we're going to say here, it returns string as well. Get all select options, and for the option we are going to say again that returns string. Page is going to be an integer, and we have get a single option. If we scroll down, we obviously need this option value and select it, so let's add these methods. Private function option value, page goes as an argument, and here we return this pagination, and from the pagination we have this URL method. We pass page as an argument, which is the page number, and obviously that will generate the correct URL for this given page. Okay, page is of an integer type, and again, if you're using PHP 7, you can type hint it here, and obviously declare the return type, which is going to be a string as well. You can use it like this, but I've started doing this with the earlier version of PHP, so I'm just going to continue like this. Okay, option value, get option value, and then the next method was this selected, so let's just add this method as well. Private function selected, and page goes through as an argument, and selected we're going to check if an exclamation mark this page pagination, sorry, is current page, and then page. So if it's not the current page, then return just an empty string. Otherwise, return what we're going to return here is going to be the attribute in between a single quote, space, then select it, so that this given page, this given option is actually selected, indicating that that's the current page. And then page is going to be integer and get selected attribute. Okay, and for the next HTML, we're going to start with if this pagination is last page, then we are going to return this inactive next page, sorry, not next page, next HTML method, which we are going to add the stub of straight away. And if that this evaluates to false, then we continue. Format is going to be uncle tag href, and again we're going to provide this placeholder, which is going to be replaced later on. Class button, and we concatenated this with this next text and closing uncle tag. And after this, the same way as before, printf function to replace this placeholder with, if we use this format first, then with this pagination and then next URL. So if we save it, and now this inactive next HTML will simply return span for the inactive next button, class button disabled, and again same label, so this next text and then closing span tag. Let's just add doc blocks to it. So this one returns string get next button, and then here get next disabled button. If we scroll up, let's just check if we've got everything here. Options, single options, current, labels, get previous button. Let's just change this get previous disabled button so that actually they have the same sort of description. So that's it for this video. In the next one, we are going to write a set of tests for this select pagination view class.